This video and all of its contents, including any opinions expressed by the narrator, are strictly for entertainment purposes only and is not intended in any way as a substitute for professional services and consultation from a licensed therapist, doctor, attorney, or other licensed professional service provider. Each person must make their own life decisions, and those decisions are theirs. Welcome back to Find Your Alpha. I'm back at you this week with another great story, and the title of today's story is My Husband Won't Accept My Affair Baby and Wants a Divorce. Should I force him to pay child support? And this is another story about a woman whose husband finds out one day that one of his kids isn't his. And what he does, this guy, he takes immediate action to file for divorce and also challenges the paternity of her child. Now let's don't waste any time. Let's get right into the story. She starts out and she says, I'm 27 and my husband is 29 and we have 3 kids. Boy 5, girl 16 months, boy 4 months. 2 years ago, I had an affair with a guy who was doing work on our house, which resulted in a pregnancy that I wasn't aware of. What do you mean you weren't aware of? You carried the child. Also, this is like the 3rd story I've done where a woman, a wife, has had an affair with somebody that was working on their house. Guys, if you're out there and you're married, be very careful who you let into your house to do repairs, because if these stories are any indication, women are on the prowl for those guys. She goes on, she says the affair lasted for about a week, and I thoroughly regret it now. During the entire time, I never stopped loving my husband and was actually more giving to him while it was going on. See, here's another case of that love bombing. After being with the other guy several times, I abruptly ended it. This happened when my son, who I had just put down for a nap, started crying while I was with the guy. When I heard that, I looked at the guy and thought to myself, my God, what am I doing? I pushed him off me and ended things right there. He was dumbfounded and apologetic, and I told him just to get the hell out of my house. So this woman was doing it with this guy in her house, and I'm assuming she was doing it in the marital bed. When I found out I was pregnant some weeks later, I just assumed the child to be my husband's, as I was only with the other guy on 2 occasions where he didn't wear protection. I know it only takes once, but our meetings occurred during a time of the month where I thought I was safe. We had our daughter, and she's just precious and is a real daddy's girl. Then a little over 4 months ago, I gave birth to our 2nd son, after which I had my tubes tied because we only wanted the 3 kids. The pregnancy was complicated, and I was put on bed rest during the final 2 months due to preeclampsia. Now, I looked up this preeclampsia, and what it is a condition of high blood pressure that some women get during pregnancy, and it can be very serious. During this time, my husband was a gem, making sure I was well taken care of and doing everything I needed for the health of myself and our baby. Thankfully, everything turned out fine, and our son is now 4 months old and looks and acts just like his daddy. Things seem to be going fine in our marriage, and I had put the dumb mistake I made 2 years ago completely out of my mind, never even thinking about it anymore. So she thought, hey, I got away with this. Then a couple weeks ago on Saturday morning, my husband told me he had something he needed to discuss with me. His mom and dad were there, so they watched the kids while we went into the bedroom for privacy. I knew it was something serious by the look on his face. There, my husband told me he had all 3 kids' DNA tested some months ago. This startled me, as he did this without discussing it with me. Before I could say anything, he said something that stopped me in my tracks. He told me our daughter wasn't his child. And this is a very sad situation for this father and also for the child, not for the mother because she's the one who did it, but for that father and his daughter. It's just a terrible situation. He said this calmly and without any buildup, so I didn't know what to say and just looked at him with my mouth wide open. I started breathing heavily and it felt like I was going to faint, so I sat down on the edge of the bed. I tried speaking, but the words just wouldn't come. He told me not to say anything or try to lie because he knows who the father is. He said I should get in touch with him about supporting his daughter, as he no longer would be once we were divorced. I was completely crushed hearing him say that, and laid back on the bed and just started crying, covering my face. My husband then kneeled down and pulled out a folder from under the dresser and handed it to me. I asked him what it was, and he told me to open it. When I did, I saw it was divorce papers, and I lost my mind. So this guy isn't wasting any time. He did all his homework and had everything prepared before he confronted her, which is very smart. I was crying so hard and so upset that I couldn't catch my breath. Meanwhile, he was as cool as a cucumber the whole time. I asked how he found out, and he said it was none of my business. All he would tell me is that he's known for some time but didn't act before due to my condition. He said now that I'm healed up and our baby is doing well, he wants out of the marriage. I asked if his parents knew. He said yes, he told them right after he found out. This really upset me as I'm very close to his mom and she didn't say a word to me about this. Why would she say anything to you? You cheated on her son. Ever since then, I've been in a deep depression. I begged for forgiveness and have tried everything to get him to reconsider, but he just tells me no and is not willing to discuss it. He won't even let me explain my side of the story and tells me he doesn't care what I did. The fact that you did it is enough. He doesn't need to know all the backstory and all the excuses you're going to make. He tells me he cannot stay married to a cheater and there's nothing I can do or offer him to change his mind. He just wants a smooth divorce and for the two of us to remain on friendly terms for the sake of our 2 kids. He keeps emphasizing 2 kids, making it clear he doesn't plan on being a father figure to our daughter. The other day, out of anger, I asked him how he could just give up his daughter like that. Before he had a chance to answer, I caught myself and apologized, telling him I shouldn't have said that. I told him I was responsible for everything and understood how he felt. But I wanted to keep our little family together. So here, she acts as if she's taking responsibility, but what she's trying to do is goad this guy into staying in the marriage and being a father to a child that doesn't belong to him. He told me I should have thought about that before I spread my legs for another man. He's right about that, but I can't go back and change what I did. God knows I would give anything to have that time back so I could do things differently. For now, he's still living at the house, but has moved into our son's room and is sleeping on the spare twin bed. I can hear the two of them chatting away in there every night, and it just breaks my heart thinking about what I've done. Other than that, nothing has really changed. He's still the happy-go-lucky guy and loving father he's always been. At times, I think we are on the road to healing, only to have him burst my bubble by asking me if I've gotten a lawyer yet. Needless to say, I'm in panic mode right now and will do anything to save my marriage. For now, I'm taking things one day at a time and keeping my fingers crossed that everything will work out. And that's the end of her original post. And now we're going to take a look at some of the comments she received back. But before we do that, I want to remind you, if you've liked what you've heard so far, make sure you hit that like button. That will really help out the channel and help get this video seen by people all over the world. Now, let's take a look at some of those comments. The first one is from a woman. She says, since you're married, he can't just walk away from his fatherly responsibilities. In most states, he's considered to be the legal father whether he wants to be or not. Get a good lawyer and have them pursue this. If he divorces you, you're still entitled, she says, underlined in bold, to child support even though the kid isn't his. So this woman is saying, even though he's not the biological father, you can make him pay and you should make him pay. The next response is from a guy. He says, women like you who commit paternity fraud are the absolute worst. You should be charged with a felony and have to pay a huge fine for your actions. She actually responds to him. She says, I didn't commit paternity fraud and would never do that. I sincerely thought he was the father. I'm heartbroken over this. So she's still sticking to the story that she didn't know the child wasn't his. I don't buy it. The next response is from a woman. She says, I feel sorry for your husband and daughter here. You caused this and are totally responsible for everything. Don't try blaming your husband. Why don't you go after the guy who knocked you up? And the OP responds, she says, I'm not blaming my husband and never will. As for the other guy, I don't want him to know, as I don't want him in our lives. So she wants nothing to do with this other guy now because she knows she's at high risk of losing her husband. And the final response is from a guy. He says, I hope your husband divorces you and goes on to live a happy life. His prospects are bright, even though he'll be paying child support for the next 18 years. Yours, on the other hand, is bleak. You'll be a single mother of 3 with 2 baby daddies, who happens to be a cheater. Good luck selling that, he says. And this respondent is right about that. I mean, it's going to be a very tough sell for her to find a good man who's going to be willing to step up and be a stepfather to 3 kids from 2 different daddies. I don't think her odds sound too good there. And now she comes back with several updates. The first one was from 12 days later. She says, things have really gone downhill for me since I first posted. Like I said before, as far as I'm concerned, my husband is the real father of my daughter and the only one she's ever known and loved. He loves her too and has treated her no differently since this all went down. He's been telling me daily to get a lawyer and reach out to the bio to have him step up and start being a father to my daughter. I refuse and keep telling him he is her father and I wouldn't call him. Well, to my surprise, my husband did something I never dreamed he'd do. He called the owner of the business that did work on our house and told him what was going on. The owner is the father of the guy I had the affair with, and his son works for him. When the owner found out, he was really angry with his son and very apologetic to my husband. Well, of course he's going to be that way because he knows that he potentially could get sued for this. He promised my husband he would make this right and force his son to step up and take financial responsibility for my daughter. He also refunded my husband for all the work they did on our house, which was substantial. Since that time, their lawyer has been calling and leaving me messages about getting DNA testing done, but I haven't returned any of her calls. Then today I got a certified letter from the attorney asking me to contact her as soon as possible, stating if I didn't respond within 7 days, she would be filing a challenge of paternity claim on behalf of her client. I don't want bio in our lives and wish he would just go away instead of breaking up my family. Is there anything I can do to stop this? And that's the end of her first update. And as far as I know, there is nothing that a woman can do to stop the biological father from taking legal action if he wants to be part of his child's life. Now, there are not many men that would step up and want to do that. This guy is doing so because I'm sure his father is forcing him to do it. And now she comes back with a second update 6 days later. She says, I talked to my AP's attorney and have an appointment set up for this coming Wednesday to have my daughter DNA tested. I asked the testing company if they could just use the results from the test my husband did, and they said they couldn't. I told my husband about this, and all he told me was, good. He's acting like he doesn't care. But I know he loves our daughter as he holds her and plays with her like nothing has changed. I think he's acting like this out of pride and because he doesn't want to pay for another man's child. This got me thinking, would it be possible to work out something where the biological father agrees to pay child support but then signs away his parental rights to my husband? This way my husband could be compensated in a way for raising our daughter. I think if we could work something out like this, my husband would be agreeable to keeping things as they are. And that's the end of her second update. She's scheming and dreaming, thinking about anything she could do to try to keep her husband in the marriage. But I'm telling you, a strong man is never going to put up with that. And then she comes back with the final update. And this happened over 8 months later. She says, I've gotten a lot of requests for an update, so I thought I'd come back and give you one. A lot has happened since I last posted, so I'll try to pick things up from where I left off. After getting the DNA results back, the biofather of my middle child petitioned the court for visitation rights pending a custody hearing. The judge granted supervised visitation, but advised that since my husband was her legal father, custody would be denied unless my husband signed away his parental rights. So this is a really difficult situation for this husband to be in, because now this biological father has stepped up. He wants to be in the child's life. He's willing to pay child support. So on one hand, I'm sure that husband is saying, okay, this is going to get resolved. But on the other hand now, he's got to give up that child. And it sounds easy, but he's been raising her as his daughter. He thought she was his daughter for, 15, 16 months old. So this is not an easy decision for him. The OP goes on, she says, I was so happy about this as I thought there was a chance my husband would reconsider. When I talked to him, he told me that his attorney had already been in touch with the bio's attorney and they were working out an agreement. I begged him to change his mind, but he refused. He said he loves my daughter, but told me this was best for her and for everyone involved. I told him I didn't want the bio father in her life, and he told me I should have thought about that before I cheated. I told him I would give him all the child support checks I received from the bio, and he could do whatever he wanted with the money. He looked at me and asked if I was serious. I said yes I was, and he told me I was a sick person. My husband ended signing away his parental rights. So now the bio is paying child support and has 25% custody of my daughter. I'm so upset about this that I can't even function. My husband, on the other hand, acts as if he's relieved by the whole thing. Our final divorce hearing is scheduled for the first week of next month. However, we've already sold our house and I'm back living with my parents for now. My husband took his proceeds and bought another house just down the street from where we live. I've agreed to everything he wanted in the divorce, so the hearing is just going to be a formality. I'm hoping between now and then he has a change of heart, but that's looking less and less likely with each passing day. I thought since he's no longer financially responsible for my daughter, he'd change his mind, but he hasn't. She just doesn't get it. He doesn't have a problem with the money. He has a problem that she cheated and the child isn't his. So in less than a month, I'll be divorced and forever brokenhearted. I've been in a constant state of stress since this all started, and I feel like I've aged 20 years. Meanwhile, my husband acts like he's walking on air without a care in the world. I love that man and always will, and I miss him so much. I know I'll never find another one like him, so I'm not even going to try. I hope in time I can forgive myself and stop feeling so depressed about life. Thank you for all the support I've received here, and that's the end of her story. And I think this guy handled the situation very well. He was cool, he was calm, he was collected. He did all the things he should have done to prepare himself for that confrontation with his wife and had the divorce papers ready. He already knew who the biological father was. He reached out to that guy who did work on his house and informed him, and then got that guy involved in getting his son to step up and take responsibility for the child. All those things he did correctly. Now, this had to be a very tough decision for this father, though. Like I said, he raised that girl for 15, 16 months, and now, in essence, he's going to be out of her life. I mean, he's still going to see her because he's still got 2 kids with this woman, but still, he's lost that daughter. So I'm sure this guy's not feeling great, and that's really going to bother him, but I'm sure he feels relieved. And now I want to go over what I think are the morals of this story. The first one, DNA test if you have any suspicion or if you just want peace of mind. I think DNA testing should be mandatory for every pregnancy, but that's not the case. So for now, I'd recommend to every guy out there, DNA test with every child. Next, gather all the evidence and cover all your bases before confronting a cheater. And like I said before, this guy did this beautifully. Next, a strong person will never accept a cheating partner, regardless of the circumstances. And I said a strong person because this goes for both men and for women. Do not accept a cheating partner, regardless of what the excuse is or regardless of what the circumstances are. Next, staying calm conveys a sense of strength, while acting with emotion conveys a sense of weakness. And you heard this wife say this a couple of times. She said, "Oh, he's cool as a cucumber. Meanwhile, I'm breaking down." Or, "Man, he seems like he's walking on air. He seems like he's relieved by everything. Meanwhile, I'm stressing out." That's because calmness conveys strength. And finally, a man's value increases with age, so he can always recover. Remember that, guys. If you're ever in a situation like this and you're feeling down, don't fret about it. Get up, be strong, move forward, and pick yourself up and go on with life, and you'll recover. You'll be just fine. So those are my thoughts, and now I want to hear from you. What did you think of this story, and how do you think this guy handled it? Do you think he did a good job, or would you have done things completely different? Tell us about it in the comments. Also, be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to this channel, and I will talk to you